Now for the final phase of what we're going to do. So now I actually want to add color inside the shapes by using paint. So probably if you're at home, you might have one of these small individual watercolor sets. So I'm gonna use one of those. Now in class, a lot of times we'll use these brushes that have these stiff bristles on them. They can kind of really eat through that watercolor paint. So if you have something with a softer bristle to it, it'll hold water. It'll be a little more gentle on those watercolors. Either brush will work, but just know if you're using one with a stiffer kind of bristle to it, you don't want to sit there digging into the paint, which I've never shown you to do that anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. So I have some water nearby. I'm going to rinse out my brush, tap it out, make sure the last person used it didn't leave some other color in there. I'm running the edge of the brush over the bucket 2 times because this is water-based paint, a watercolor paint that I want to add water to. Then I'm going to choose my first color. Now, let's say I want to paint the space here that has the blue zigzag lines in it. Well, if I paint it blue, then that's really going to kind of camouflage or hide the lines in there. So I want something to contrast with it. So maybe I decide I'm going to use orange in there. So I'm going to add some orange paint to my brush. I'm going to load it on there. And then a lot of us would stress out, okay, well, I don't want to cover the lines, so I'm going to go right up to the edge. But the nice thing is you used wax crayons, and if you pressed hard enough, then what should happen is the water-based paint will not stick to those, so it will actually resist. So you can actually save time by brushing right over that, and you'll see as you're doing this, it might be hard to see as I'm doing it, but you'll see as you're doing it, you can still see my blue lines, but up close, you'll actually see that the paint kind of, at first it touches those lines, but then it's going to scoot away and back off of it because the wax is pushing away the water that's in that water-based paint. Now we know from experience, if I want this orange to show up darker, then I could add more paint. So I see that that turned a darker shade of orange. If I want it to be lighter, I would add more water. I like it being darker. Now I think I want to balance this out. So where I did the same pattern, I think I'm going to paint with the same color orange. That really seems to make the blue lines pop out so I can see them. So our goal is really to show off our lines, not hide them. Then I have to choose a color that would work and show off my green lines. The green is kind of a soft color. So I think if I go with something a little brighter, maybe this red color here, this will make it stand out. They seem very different, so the red would contrast with the green. And again, you can see how at first it covers the green, but then when I keep painting, the red paint scoots away from the green line, so it reveals itself. So the wax pushes the water off of it. So this is a technique where you're using resist to make sure those colors show. Now, if you go back and forth too much over it, eventually you might layer the paint on top of the crayon wax, and yeah, that might start to cover it up. But once it's covered, once I've filled it in, then I'm going to move on to the next part of the shape. Again, if I want the red darker, I add more. If I want it lighter, I add more water. So I'm going to continue painting my shapes. You guys are going to continue painting yours, and I look forward to seeing what these look like when they're finished. So please send me your images.